I affirm the resolution that we should approve mandating term limits for the Supreme Court. I believe this to be fact round, using burden of proof. Yes. So this condition one, this promotes judicial accountability. Term limits prevents justices from holding unchecked power for decades. Rotating judges ensures decisions reflect the evolving societal values and reduce risks of partisanship or judicial activism. A Supreme Court seat is for life, and life changes. Not many people do. Encourages fresh perspectives. Regular turnover introduces diverse viewpoints and keeps the court aligned with contemporary legal and social issues, fostering a dynamic judiciary system. It reduces politicization of appointments. With term limits, appointments would occur predictably, reducing high-stakes partisan battles over vaccines and tempering the court's perceived political nature. It addresses longevity concerns. Lifetime appointments are less practical given their increasing lifespans. Term limits ensures judges serve within a reasonable amount of time without overextending their tenure, and it enhances their public confidence. A court with term limits would be more fair, impartial, and increasing trust in the judiciary as an institution. This combats the perception of justices being out of touch or entrenched in their positions. Balances power between branches. Regular judicial turnover prevents any single political ideology from dominating the court for generations, ensuring a more balanced interplay between the judiciary, legislature, and executive branches. It as well fosters merit-based appointments. A predictable system of term limits encourages presidents to nominate qualified judges focused on their contributions rather than long-term ideological influence, like someone who's young. By implementing term limits, the Supreme Court would become a more adaptive, accountable, and representative institution in the United States democratic framework. Thank you.
Cross-examination. How would term limits for Supreme Court justice protect judicial independence when justice might start making decisions based on their desire to please the president or secure a future position rather than interpreting the law fairly?
Well, first of all, judges would want to do something that makes the public happy or benefits the public, because if they don't and the president appoints them again, that's bad for their administration, which upholds law or legislation.
If justices had term limits, do you think we should lose value and experience and the outcome from serving the court for extended periods, especially in handling complex and long-term legal issues?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let me see how to read. I'm asking, since there's if you wanted to limit how long someone is in office, do you think we should limit the amount of time and experience it takes for them to get to that certain place?
Should there be a certain age you're eligible, is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Or sure, why not?
The current system allows the Supreme Court to maintain a long-term stability in its decisions. How do you think the frequent turnover resulting from term limits would impact the consistency and reliability of the court's ruling?
Well, I don't think it should be as short as a presidential term. Maybe it should be around 12 years, which gives it a good amount of time to see how the law or legislation has resonated within the nation.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the judges and my opponent. I will be using my policy will be using as a fact round, and I will be using burden of proof. Justices serve for life to protect them from political pressure. If Supreme Court justice had term limits, they might start making decisions based on what we would do to help them get reappointed to secure the position elsewhere after their term has ended. This could lead to the biased ruling influenced by the politics of the moment rather than being based on the Constitution and law. Contention 1. Supreme Court justices need experience to make fair and informed decisions on complex legal issues. Justice serves for life. Justices serve for life, which allows them to build up the knowledge and the wherewithal need to handle these difficult cases that courts face. If justices had term limits, the court could lose value, experience, and frequently leading to inconsistency and less effective ruling. Term limits could encourage the president and Congress to push for appointments based on short-term political goals rather than selecting justices who can objectively interpret the law. This could make Supreme Court more partisan and less focused on the rule of law. Without term limits, justices are able to make decisions without fear of political consequences, ensuring fairness and balance in the court's ruling. Thank you.
All right. Do you feel like justices should serve for life?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like, how do you feel about justices retiring during the party they like when it's in power? How do you feel like a Republican judge retiring when the Republican Party's in power, when the Democrats in power? How do you feel about that?
I feel fine because their decision to retire, whether they're in power or not, is their decision to make.
But it's a decision made on a political party when they're supposed to be separate from that branch.
It's still up to them.
I agree, it is up to them.
Right.
But don't you feel like it should be better for the nation to retire when whoever's in party and when their time is up, or should it be better for them to retire and replace it just with someone younger so they can serve for a longer amount of time?
I believe they should be able to retire when they want to, and not rather than when their time is up.
Okay. What was I gonna ask? With the term limits, we do understand that you can be reappointed, correct?
Correct.
So then the issue of you be losing experience, that's a moot point. They could just be reelected. Would you agree?
Not necessarily. Do you have any examples or evidence when somebody has stepped down and they have been reappointed?
There's no term limits right now.
I'm not following your question.
Right now,
Right.
There's no term limits.
Correct.
You serve for life.
Yeah.
In this situation, you can be reappointed.
Right.
So the point you made that if there's term limits, we'd be losing out on experienced judges and it takes time. They could just be reappointed if they've done a good job, and if they haven't, they're out. So would you agree that the point that you'd be losing out on experience is a moot point?
No, because it's not into play yet, and we don't know how often those people will get reappointed back into the office. So you would still be losing the knowledge that you have for that time being, for when they're out of office, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's all.
Moving on to rebuttals.
All right. So the reason I feel like you should vote for me is because we all know the issue without term limits. Serving for life, they retire when a political party they enjoy is in power. But the main point of the judicial system is to be a balance of power and separate, not within a Democratic or Republican party. This causes an issue. Secondly, it creates a more balanced court without a court dominating and reversing laws that were made years ago that benefit the nation just because their political view is different. This allows judges to come in with fresh ideas, and who are adaptable to society today. I feel like just adding on to my points, it fosters a merit-based appointments, predictable system of term limits, encourages presidents to nominate qualified judges, focus on their contributions rather than long-term ideological influence, i.e. their legacy. So that's why you should vote for me. Thank you.
I would say to vote for me. My rebuttal is to restate what I said earlier. My counterpart mentioned balance, but there would not be a balance because, again, if electoral officials are being taken down and they have term limits, then the work that is being done in the office would just be done just for the time being and not for the long term. However long the term is, that's what the works they would be doing just for that short term. None of the things that they do are for long term and for the benefit of the economic growth or society. Along with that, stating another point that I have, Supreme Court justices need experience to make fair and informed decisions on complex legal issues. If there is just a rotation of elected officials or judicial, wherever the case be, then there would not be fair decisions made because decisions would be made based off of them being in office. Why people have lifetime to be in the office because they don't have the fear of messing up or making a decision based on whether they're just in office or not. They have to make that decision and they have to live with that decision. So to make a decision and live with it, the decision is much more moral than it would be than what it is just I'm in office for a certain time so I can make a decision and leave and then somebody else has to deal with it. Thank you. Closing speech.
I'm glad. Thank you to all the judges, my competitor. It's been a great debate. We're wrapping up here. The reason you should vote for me is simple. Judges should not be serving for life. The position of judicial Supreme Court judge should not be held for 40 years. I'm sorry. Times change, and if you're eligible, if the people feel you're eligible, they'll elect a president that will appoint a judge who's eligible and able to serve. Judges become old. With age comes dementia, comes Alzheimer's, comes different illnesses. And trying to stop your body from dying just so you survive long enough for a different president to be elected isn't healthy and isn't good for the nation. So in turn, this is why you should vote for the affirmative on making term limits available. Thank you.